Hi, my name is Annika and today I'm going to be telling you about what media I consumed in January. One of my New Year's resolutions is to make one of these for every month of the year. I like documenting what I'm reading, watching / listening to, and I always like to give recommendations. First off, let's get into the books. So before we start anything, I'm gonna read the blurbs out on the backs of each book, because I realised in my last video I did not do that and I feel kind of bad. I didn't really explain what the plot of anything was. That's my bad. I'm remedying that. Yeah, starting off with books. I read this in one day. First off, we have In Praise of Shadows by Junichiro Tanizaki. Anyway, this is super short. It's only about 50 pages. So the blurb reads, "This is an enchanting essay on aesthetics by one of the greatest Japanese novelists. Tanizaki's eye ranges from architecture to food and combines an acute sense of the use of space in buildings with perfect descriptions of lacquerware under candlelight and women in the darkness of a house of pleasure. The result is a classic description of the collision between the shadows of traditional Japanese interiors and the dazzling light of the modern age." This is one 50-page essay. I found it fascinating. I read a fair amount of Japanese literature because of my degree. I was already familiar with him as an author beforehand, and I've had this book in my collection for years, and I just wanted to kind of bang out a quick, again, this is so... I read this in one night. In about, an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm a slow reader, okay? I'm sorry. What do you want me to do? I really enjoyed the afterword written by Thomas J. Harper in this book. It explained kind of that the structure of it was meant to be kind of stream of consciousness so as to complement the style of Japanese aesthetics that he was talking about. But I really enjoyed it. It wasn't really hard to keep track of what he was saying. It wasn't confusing at all. It was it's simply but beautifully written. The second book that I read, kind of regret reading, if I'm gonna be honest. I'm sorry. I read The Art of Seduction by, I'm pretty sure it's Robert Greene. Let me double check that. So that is correct. So I found out about 2 days after finishing this that that was the same guy who wrote, The 48 Laws of Power. Safe to say I didn't really enjoy this. He just advocates for quite manipulative tactics, and also he quite literally refers to the individual being seduced as a victim, which, is that the best terminology that we can come up with? No, you could tell that a man wrote that. The stories recounted in the chapters about the individual seductive archetypes were quite interesting, in all fairness. Framing of it was just quite off-putting. I rated it like a 2 out of 5 on Goodreads. Follow my Goodreads if you want. I have my linktree in the description. I feel obligated to share my reading experience, even though I don't really recommend it. Then I just read another 50-page book. I'm just really into short stories at the moment. I read Lord Arthur Saville's Crime. I think that's how you pronounce that surname, but it's by Oscar Wilde. Who in this day and age doesn't love Oscar Wilde? Again, I read this also in a day. This one's blurb is really short, but it reads, "Wilde's supremely witty tale of dandies, anarchists, and a murderous prophecy in London high society," which is intriguing. As far as I understand, it is a parody of the Gothic novel, but it is not a parody in the way that you would think. It doesn't really disparage the Gothic genre, per se, but it is, clearly written with a respect for the trope. This is about an aristocrat to be wed to his fiancée, and he gets his palm read at a party, and it is prophesied that he is to kill someone. And obviously he has a bit of a spiral over this. I found the main character of this so interesting because it continually states that he's such a rational man, despite being so irrational throughout the whole book and jumping to the wildest conclusions. He decides that he needs to commit this murder to get it out of the way before he marries his wife so that they can have a respectable marriage and she does not have to be ashamed of her husband. He plots to kill several family members, and safe to say it doesn't really work the first 2 times. And then he finds someone to actually kill, and he does it. It's punchy, it's fun, it's interesting. I really enjoy how it critiques rationality as a concept, and it shows just how easy it is for the rational mind to fall apart into pieces. You know, in an age of industrialization, it must have been pretty funny to have this man of high society, such a logical and rational man, be driven to such horrible acts by something as trivial as a palm reading. The last book I'm actually still reading, but it is Crash by J.G. Ballard, and I am enjoying this immensely. And the blurb reads, "When James Ballard smashes his car into another, he becomes fascinated with the allure of violence. His new friend, Dr. Robert Vaughan, I think that's how you pronounce that name, a charismatic figure with a dubious sense of morality, leads him to a transgressive underworld of desire, where the collision of modernity and sex are pushed to the extremes. In a society ruled by mass media and technological advancements, are there any limits to humanity's obsessions?" This... This, I think, is going to become probably one of my favourites of this year. I've just never really read anything like it. If anyone has suggestions for books with a similar kind of vibe, please let me know. This is essentially about a man who's very into cars, let's just say. Car crashes, to be specific. There's something about the style of writing in this book. It just scratches an itch in my brain. It's beautiful and descriptive, but it's clinical. Despite how erotic the concept of the book is, it has this detachment from everything. When he writes, the author puts everything important under a microscopic lens, is basically the best way to describe it. To the point where it sometimes feels unrecognizable from the actual thing being looked at. I recommend looking up a trigger warning list for this book, because there's a lot. This book came out in the 70s, and there was a lot of controversy about it when it first came out. I always recommend reading introductions, forewords, afterwords in books, because it often explains, you know, the intent of an author more clearly by giving context about their lives and their other works. You know, they're usually not even very long, so I recommend that if you want to gain a broader perspective of books and to just be able to engage with it more critically. Those are my 4 books of January. Swiftly moving on to movies, the first one that I watched in January, it was, of course, Nosferatu. Now, who would have seen that coming? I went to see it with my partner. I loved it. And I also loved seeing everyone's takes on the film and how open it was to interpretation. The ending image... speechless. Winter is always the best time to consume darker novels, gothic literature, obviously very heavily inspired by gothic novels. I actually need to watch the original Nosferatu, it's on my to be watched. I loved Lily Rose Depp's performance in this, and since I saw this I have not been able to stop doing a Count Orlok impression, which I will not burden you with right now. It's not good, let's say that. In case you haven't been online recently, Nosferatu is a film directed by Robert Eggers. It's about a woman who's plagued with visions and seizures. In her life previously she had had contact with a vampire, and her husband goes off to, I believe it is Romania, somewhere, to sell Count Orlok, the vampire, a house in, I believe it is Germany? And, you know, she begs him not to leave, but he does, and he signs a contract giving her away. A plague hits, Count Orlok really wants her bad, but it's more of a love story between her and her husband than her and Count Orlok, because it's quite, you know, I choose to take the stance that it's an allegory for sexual violence. That's the interpretation that made the most sense to me watching it. Next, I'm gonna class 2 movies as one. I watched Bridget Jones's Diary 1 and 2. Bridget Jones is the original frazzled English woman. I don't even like using that term, but that's where it comes from. She pretty much invented that style. So Bridget Jones's Diary, in case you don't know, is a very loose Pride and Prejudice adaptation in the modern world between a kind of girl failure English lady. She works as a news reporter and she meets Mark Darcy at I believe it's a Christmas party or something, and he's very rude to her. But this has the added element of another man whose name I actually forgot. But they form a love triangle, basically. And turns out this other man is not so great of a boyfriend. And she does end up with Mark Darcy in the end. To be honest, I don't think they were right for each other at all. I like the films. They were entertaining and they were lighthearted. You know, I watched them with family. But I believe that Mark Darcy was very stuck up and never liked her the way she is, despite that being the whole selling point of Mark Darcy. And I think Bridget settled for him because she has low self-esteem and because she wanted to be accepted and validated by someone. The main reason she falls for him is because he claims to love her as she is, which is just not true, but that's my take. Moving on, I watched Possession 1981 by Andrzej Zulawski. I loved this. Everyone was so correct about this film. This is a psychological horror film. I love anything freaky with a little psychosexual undertone, and that's exactly what this is giving. The plot reads, a woman starts exhibiting increasingly disturbing behaviour after asking her husband for a divorce. Suspicions of infidelity soon give way to something much more sinister. I've heard a lot more talk about this film online as of late, and for good reason. It's a cult classic, so I decided to check it out. I've seen a lot of people joke about the acting in this, but I believe that was inspired by Polish acting techniques. I'm not sure about that. I think I might have heard that somewhere. It is very dramatic, but I think going into it with an open mind is key. The miscarriage scene was phenomenal, and I truly mean that. This instantly became one of my favourites. The last film I watched was Secretary, 2002. It was directed by Steven Schoenberg, starring Maggie Gyllenhaal and James Spader. I actually had a really interesting moment the other day. When I was logging this book on Letterboxd, I realised that James Spader actually played in the movie adaptation of Crash, the book that I read. I didn't realise it had a movie adaptation, but I'm really looking forward to watching that after I finish this. That is probably going to be in my next wrap-up. So the plot reads, a timid young woman starts working for a demanding lawyer and finds a new way to deal with her self-harming urges. That being BDSM. This film has so much tension in it. And I am nothing if not the biggest tension advocate. And I love that they were both girl failures. And yes, I count... oh, what's his name? The lawyer's name? I count the lawyer as a girl failure as well. I forgot his name. I don't think I would have enjoyed this if this lawyer was a confident man, but he is so off-putting that it's endearing. And of course, it also helps tremendously that he is played by a younger James Spader. I found this film so interesting. I loved watching it. The majority of the film is shot in the apartment that the lawyer lives in and she works in as the secretary. I personally loved it. I think this walked so that 50 Shades of Grey could run. I've never seen or read 50 Shades of Grey, but I feel like that's true. I'm confident enough to say that Secretary is probably better though, just because of how much of a little freak they both are. I think we need a lot more off-putting characters in films and fiction. On to TV shows. I actually only watched one TV show. Same with music. I only listened to one thing this month. But for TV shows, I watched the first season of Sex and the City. Now, I feel like everyone and their mother is rewatching Sex and the City at this point. Well, I don't know why I said rewatching. I've never seen it before. But I'm in love. It's such a good comfort show. You know, what is there to say about Sex and the City that hasn't already been said? 4 girl best friends living in New York, spending outrageous money on shoes and having trouble in their love lives. And they're well fleshed out characters. You know, they're all deeply flawed. I mean, Carrie herself is so... well, she's insufferable. It's just very jazz bar in New York. But yeah, in terms of music, the only thing I've listened to this month is the album Mezzanine by Massive Attack. Now, my descriptions of music always suck because I don't know anything about music. I don't know how to distinguish instrument sounds or different genres or anything. I like this. I think it's electronic, maybe rock. That's my guess. But I'm probably not right in that. I used to listen to a lot more music than I do nowadays, but then I cancelled my Spotify subscription and I've just been on YouTube Premium, so I haven't really been listening to as much music at the moment. That's okay though. If you have any recommendations that you've been loving for either TV shows or music, I'd love to hear them because I really do need to get back into, you know, TV shows and music. Like, I've been slacking. I love discovering new music. TV shows not so much. It's just like, I used to be a big TV show girl when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, because there would be more content, but I find that I don't have the time for that as much, so I'd prefer film recommendations, to be honest. Right, let's get on to YouTubers. These are just quick shout outs. I consistently watch the same YouTubers every time, but I think with these monthly wrap-ups, I'm just gonna name drop kind of my top few, my top 3 maybe, of the month, in no particular order. First one for this month, I've been watching a lot of the YouTube channel Manifestal. I have actually been aware of this YouTube channel for a long time. I did believe in the beginning that it was kind of a, you know, self-care, self-help, kind of divine feminine adjacent YouTube channel, which did kind of put me off, I'm gonna be honest, because I feel like many people don't engage with that very critically. But I was wrong. I found that she actually makes really informative and well-researched video essays on different women's issues. I always learn so much from her videos and I love putting them on. In a time of very high political turmoil, I think educating yourself and kind of making an effort to consume more enriching content, I mean like more intellectually enriching content. Don't get me wrong, I love, you know, sometimes you need to put on an easy video. Sometimes you don't have the energy to process like a full video essay. I watch a lot of commentary YouTube if I need to scratch that itch of just kind of something in the background. But I've been really enjoying learning about these different topics. My second top YouTuber of the month is Silky Mochi. She makes amazing fashion videos, usually targeting like alternative subcultures or like darker subcultures, and she came up with an amazing system on dark aesthetic muses being various fantasy archetypes and fantasy creatures. She's made incredibly detailed buying guides, styling guides. She's elaborated a lot on this concept of the dark aesthetic subtypes, archetypes. It's very well thought out. She's made a lot of videos on fashion, like Kibbe and Kitchener essences, I think that's what it's called. Kibbe body types, Kitchener essences, and how to turn all of these into a more alternative style. I highly recommend that for anyone seeking to kind of level up their fashion game. And the third YouTuber I'm going to mention is Anais Law. I believe that's how it's pronounced. I'm so sorry if it's not. She makes amazing content around like writing and literature, some vlogs as well, and they're just so incredibly cozy. They all have this warm color palette, and she's in a gorgeous house writing by candlelight. It's just so comforting, and she has great taste in books. I highly recommend her if you're looking for a new comfort channel. I will link all of their channels down below for ease of access because I highly recommend you go over and check them out. I like to think I have great taste in YouTubers. I am a YouTube connoisseur, so trust me on this one. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'm so happy that you stayed to listen to me talk about my favourite things. I hope you found some good recommendations here. I really like YouTube because I just get to talk. It's great. I love talking. If anything you saw here today seems interesting to you, I implore you to subscribe if you wish, and I would appreciate it very much if you left a like and perhaps turned on the notification bell. Again, your choice. It would be a very kind gesture though, I must say. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day.